Hola, Darwin.
Hello.
Buenos días.
Buenos dias. It's midday here. So, how are you?
Buenas tardes. How's that for my Spanish? Huh?
Buenas tardes. You got a little bit of French there. Bon.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Canada, so that's our first.
Yeah. How are you? How's everything?
Life is great, living the dream, Darwin, as you are as well too.
You're back in Cali?
I am back in Southern California, just returned from Maui, so that was a fun trip to say the least.
How long were you guys there?
2 weeks in Maui.
Cool.
Yeah,
The
and
kids.
we've been there 3 times now, so we kind of feel like locals. I mean, when you can drive around and not have to use navigation on your phone, you kind of know your way around and stuff. So certainly we felt like locals, but at this time of year is when there's 1,000 whales that migrate from Alaska to have their babies in the warm, shallow waters of Maui. So literally every 2 to 3 minutes, a whale's jumping out of the water. You see little fins popping up where babies are learning how to swim. So it's magical. As soon as you snorkel and you go under, you can
Mhm.
hear all the orchestra of these whales. So it really is a magical experience for us.
Wow. How long does it go for? The whole month or just
It starts in January, ends in March. So usually they're there for 6 weeks and then they leave. But yeah, I would think right around this time, like mid-March, they're all going back to Alaska. That all the food's in Alaska.
yeah. I'm
So
assuming
they
the
don't.
kids didn't want to go home.
Well, we were ready. I mean, we've got, baseball season, basketball season
Yeah.
for my middle child. So, they miss their friends, they miss their routine. 2 weeks was the perfect amount of time, it seems.
Yeah. That's good. Especially in an island. After 2 weeks, you kind of get antsy. It's like,
Yeah, I mean, you'd know.
yeah.
You
Jamie,
spent
thank you
more
for
than two
hopping.
weeks.
What is it?
You spent more than 2 weeks on an
Yeah.
island, so I'm
A
sure the
long
island
time.
kept shrinking on you as time went on.
A long time. But Jamie, thank you for hopping on. I know you're a busy man. But I mean, we haven't spoken in a while. I feel like I think the last time we spoke is 2 months ago that I called you. 2 months
Yeah,
ago.
I mean it's fun to see what you're doing and your enthusiasm for your business. I mean, I love it, Darwin.
Yeah. No, and same for you. I mean, I learned a lot from you. I think you're the top three from the people that I've learned the most. And the day that I make it to my pinnacle, you're amongst the people that I'm gonna mention for sure.
Oh, that's
So
great. Well,
who's
chances are you'll never hit the pinnacle.
what is
That's
it?
kind of the chances are you'll never hit the pinnacle. I mean,
Yeah, because I'll always be going for another one.
something tells me you'll never be content.
Yeah. So Jamie, I mean, the podcast is just to get to know you, get to know your story, and kind of share some insight. So who is Jamie Hepp? When did you get started in business and where you at now?
Sure. All right. Well, for all your podcast listeners here, so the name is Jamie Hepp. Grew up in Canada, so I spent the first 25 years of my life, in Canada. Lots of fond memories. I had a great childhood. Great friends growing up there. But I wanted a shot in the United States. I mean, growing up there, it's cold. It's a cold weather country, so the lure of warm weather and just taking a shot at business in the United States very much intrigued me. I got lucky enough that I had a 1 year work permit. I was on a TN visa from Canada, and I was basically told, listen, the only way you're going to stay in America is you have to become irreplaceable. That word just stuck out in my head with my immigration lawyer. Like, if they can replace you, if an American can do your job, well, then why are they going to give you a visa? You're just taking away an American job. So I'm like, oh, no. So irreplaceable kept sticking in my mind. And so then as I got into the business, that I'm in, which is obviously where you and I met, Darwin,
Yeah.
there was this path, an opportunity where I could become a shareholder and owner of the company if I could demonstrate my ability to sell and develop salespeople, build a team. And I'm like, hey, quantify that. What does that mean? And, long story short, the number is around 10 sales reps, and then you can, run a business.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. I kind of had urgency, because again, I knew I had 1 year to kind of make this happen before another immigration meeting, whether I could extend that visa or not. And so it's funny, my immigration path and my business path, as time went on, for my first 10 years, I was on a visa. And I remember my last visa before I took the path of, citizenship, so again, 10 years into it, I had to show them an org chart of all the employees that I work with and who's on whose team and yada, yada. And in the org chart, there were, 300 employees in the company. And so the immigration officer, I remember her saying this, she goes, we pretty much have to give you a work visa, don't we? And I'm like, yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. I mean, so that's how I became irreplaceable, was by creating jobs, by employing people, so if they didn't give me a visa, there'd be 300 people that, would be without work. So they had to give me a visa. So that was kind of, my story, at least with immigration, stuff like that. I live in Southern California now. I live in Laguna Niguel, California, South Orange County. Married man, happily married. This will be my 20-year anniversary this year. So beautiful wife, Joanne, 3 great kids. You can see them right here. They're wonderful little kids. And yeah, I live a very blessed life. I just celebrated my 50th birthday in Maui. That was part of the draw in March, going to Maui. And I couldn't help but just reflect. I'm like, gee, when I was a kid growing up, obviously 50's old. There's no way around that. Like 50's not, I'm a young whippersnipper. I'm an old man, so I get that. And I don't need anybody telling me, oh, well, you look young, Jamie. I don't need any of that trash. 50 is old. Okay. 50's old. But when I was young, if I were to look at the life I'm going to have, man, I feel luckier than I'm living a better dream than I could have dreamt when I was 25, when I moved to the United States. So I just feel very blessed. I'm a very blessed man. I'm a very lucky man. I'm surrounded by great people, great church community, great community here in Laguna Niguel, great sports community, everything. So I feel very blessed, Darwin. I just want to make that point very clear to your audience. I am filled with gratitude for all the blessings in my life.
You said one word that sticks out to me. It's irreplaceable. So do you feel that if you would have had that pressure of you either make it happen or not, you would have not been as urgent? How will your path be different if you wouldn't have not had that one thing pushing you every day?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about that with people so I've ran my business in Los Angeles for most of my career. And as I'm, working with the new recruit and I'm just sort of relating my story, I'm like, yeah, I don't know what it would have been like for me if I was, let's say, an Angelino. I'm born and raised in LA and all my friends are in LA. And, I don't know. I mean, all I know is my story and my path. And so, yes, I had urgency and I didn't know anybody in LA when I moved here. So I naturally made friends with coworkers. So most of my time was spent with coworkers, which obviously is an ingredient for team building. And so I wasn't distracted with having to balance, time with my coworkers and then time with my friends. No, my friends were my coworkers. So I don't know what that would have been like. It would have been much harder, I think, if I was really distracted with several circles of friends and a lack of urgency because of that, ticking clock of 1 year and that urgency, to your point. So I don't know. I speculate it would be much more difficult for me, though. And I have empathy for people that come in that have to balance those distractions, because I didn't really have that. I just, could put my blinders on and just put my head down and just work. And then I wanted play, obviously, but play was always with coworkers. And that sped things up and got me to the position of ownership, really within 6 months.
That's awesome. I mean, it's interesting how making things easier in a way will make you get to your result harder. You see, because being around your friends and family, it's easier for you, but it's harder to get to your results. So it's yeah, it's interesting how just the environment can be just such a definite factor for people.
Mm-hmm.
And in the business, I mean, we were, when we met, we were teaching sales, building teams, and then that obviously was a catapult for you, because then you didn't have any other option. So let's say a year in, from the day that you started your sales career, how did you start it? What were you doing? What the day-to-day looked like back
Yeah,
then?
well, I mean, it was a grind. I mean, way back. So this would have been like 1999. Okay, so I don't even think you were
Two
born yet.
years old. I was born in
Okay.
97.
Yeah, so this is like pre-internet, pre-cell phones. Like, again, talk about a dinosaur here. I mean, these were the old days. But so we were selling coupons, really a $20 coupon is what we were selling, door to door, house to house, knocking on doors. My commission on that $20 product was $6, right? So then usually the product was something like, think of the coupons you get in the mail, similar, except just more lucrative, like, Papa John's pizza. Hey, we'll give you, 20 free pizzas on a buy one, get one free. But these two on the bottom are just 2 free pizzas right off the bat. So if you're going to spend $20 on pizza anyway, hey, just spend $20 with me and you got, all these coupons. So obviously the biggest thing I had to sell was trust, because people like, yeah, who are you, kid, knocking on my door? Like, how do I know this is legit? So, I remember coming to the US, I was shocked I'm like, boy, Americans sure are skeptical. Like, they don't believe me for some reason. Like in Canada, they would just believe me, like why would they think I'm a scam? But here in the US, everybody's like, they want to talk through the door. They don't want to open it. They think that, these coupons aren't legitimate. So, it was challenging, but, the day would start at 9 o'clock in the morning. We get to the office at 9. We'd hit the field by 11 in the morning. Last door was typically 8 p.m., around 8 to 8:30 p.m. Then we'd go back to the office. You're usually in the office till around 10 p.m. So yeah, that's a 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. day, 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. So, I mean, you were dedicated and you weren't making a lot of money. I mean, again, it's $6 per. If you were good, you were selling 10, right? If you were good. I didn't start off good. I was averaging more like 4 a day. So 4 times 6 is $24 a day. Thank God that gas prices were only like probably $1.80 a gallon back then. I don't even know. But yeah, it's not like I was like thriving, starting off. And then again, when I did get good, I was only making about $60 a day times 6 days a week, 360. So again, it was poverty city living in, but it was, I mean, it's interesting. It's like, why would anybody stick around in that? You could see the opportunity. I mean, I remember so we went on a road trip to this small town. There were 2 video stores. Again, I'm dating myself on being a dinosaur. Back in the old day before Netflix and, streaming, you'd have to go to a store, and actually rent a video. Like, kind of crazy how Blockbuster Video passes on an opportunity to buy Netflix back in the day, right? But anyway, so that's how things were. There are only 2 video stores in this small town. We represented one of them. And, we're knocking on doors trying to sell people, and hey, come to this video store, we're going to give you, XYZ. Long story short, the other video store we weren't representing ended up going out of business because of our sales team. Like, we eventually just lured the whole town, whether they bought the coupon or not. They got a commercial at the door from a lively young sales rep, inviting you down, come check it out. And again, long story short, the other video store had no customers. Like, we stole everybody. And so, as a youngster, coming into the business, I'm like, wow, this stuff is powerful. This face-to-face stuff is powerful. So I saw that, even though I wasn't making a lot of money, I knew it could become something. Roll the clock ahead. I mean, here we are today representing Amazon. I mean, easy to get your foot in the door when you're like, hey, sir, I'm here on behalf of Amazon. AT&T, I could be wrong with my numbers, but I believe we bring them more customers through our face-to-face channel than they get through TV. So we're more powerful than their TV commercials. So I'm not surprised the business is the way it is now, because again, a face-to-face commercial is, the most effective way to get a customer. Last year, we got in front of 80 million people, right? When you look at all the doors we knocked on, all the retail stores we're in. I mean, we had 80 million face-to-face interactions last year. X said yes, Y said no, but they all got a commercial from a lively, spunky, high integrity sales rep. And man, we can move the needle with these companies big time. So again, I saw that in the beginning, even though it's coupon sales at $6 a rip kind of thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, and it's hard to see it when the money is not coming in every week, right? Like, what do you think was the thing that you, obviously the opportunity, you were able to see it, but was it the people that gave you like some of that confidence, or was it the fact that you knew that if you went all in, you were going to make it work anyways?
Well, what's interesting is I seemed much less concerned about my life and I drove a piece of crap car. I tell my son's 13 now. We're going online looking at cars, and I'm showing him like the kind of automobile that I had when I was young, and he's like, "Dad, like, please tell me I'm going to get something better than that." I'm like, "Well, sure," but it didn't bother me that I was driving a piece of junk car. It didn't bother me that I was buying my clothes at Ross Dress for Less. Like, that stuff didn't bug me. Like, when I look at today's young people, and especially I think social media plays such a big part of it, like your image is just so important and how you're doing is so important. I mean, and I guess, I mean, if you're constantly comparing yourself on your phone to your friends and stuff like that, I get that whole FOMO and, people's image, means so much to them. I just didn't really have, I don't want to say I had none of that, because I know I did have some, but much less than most. So I was willing to, like, there was a time I'm living in a house. There were 12 of us living in a 3-bedroom house. So I'm sharing a room with 4 people. That didn't bug me. I mean, my rent was $150 a month. That's what I looked at. I'm like, geez, I can take all these gambles and risks and, sales, commission only, all this stuff. I can take these gambles because it doesn't hardly cost me anything to stay alive.
Yeah.
So I just was willing to buy some time, because I just needed to figure out business. I knew the other path was, okay, hey, go get as high a paying a job as possible now. And I had friends that had these jobs where it just seemed like they were overpaid for what they were doing. And eventually they lost those jobs. Eventually a new boss comes in like, "Hey, Bob, what exactly do you do here with this company?" And like, they get caught, like I'm not doing anything. I'm not irreplaceable, so to speak. So I think that was a big advantage for me, is I just in my early 20s, I got plugged into good success literature at a young age, and I bought into this concept from John Maxwell, the 3 stages of life: learn, earn, and return. Okay. So in your early 20s, it's all about learning. Don't get caught up in earning. Like so many people, I graduated from college, I'm 22. Now I got to go earn. No. Now you got to go learn. Or you think that 4 years in college was learning? No, that was you were improving your social skills more than anything really in college. Like you're a young adult learning how to interact with other young adults. And I think there's big value in that. Like I'm very pro, go to school, even if it's just for that. I really question how much you'll actually learn. Like, am I using my education much on a daily basis from college? Not really. But again, those social skills, I mean, that's learning. But now you graduated from college. Well, now learn how the world works, learn an industry. Don't get caught up in the money game. Don't chase money, chase opportunity, and money will follow. Money will be a byproduct of that. So learn, earn, then in your 30s and 40s and 50s, those will be your high earning years. And then returns, give it all back. Like you should have a goal to go to the grave net zero. John Maxwell, when people question about that, because he's giving away, he donates over $1 million a year to charity. He's trying to time it where he should be at about a net zero by the time he dies. And somebody questions and say, "Hey, John, so what if you're wrong and you live longer than you thought you're going to live?" He says, "Oh, that's easy. I'll just move in with my kids." That's his answer. Like,
Oh my God.
I've been taking care of them for years, they'll take care of me. So if I'm wrong and I outlive what I thought, hey, so be it. I'll just move in with my family kind of thing. So, but I like that. I like that whole learn, earn, return. Now you can start returning, with your service, right? I'm a big fan of that. Like, hey, when you're young in business and stuff like that, even a young entrepreneur like you, hey, I wouldn't get so caught up in how much money you're giving away yet. Like, just earn, but give your time, like, put some time into a soup kitchen, or, volunteer at a boys and girls club, or volunteer at your local church. So I'm a big fan of like returning early on, way before you ever make it, but financially learn, earn, return. So I bought into that in my 20s, and I really look at my 20s like a springboard of learning time. I mean, when you go door to door and you talk to 60,000 people over X amount of time, you're learning a ton
Yeah.
about yourself. You're learning a ton about the country. You're learning a ton about certain neighborhoods. I mean that education can't be replaced in a textbook or any book or any conversation. That's experience that I'll take with me wherever I go.
Like I'm so appreciative of the field because the exposure you get.
Hmm.
Like I got clients right now, Jamie, that some through referrals and some through door knocking that I could have never come in contact with if I would have never learned sales.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
um, we have as a client the founder of Roku, which is the TV, which a great friend of mine. I'm gonna actually have him on a podcast. We have one of the people that are like the most successful people in Austin in real estate in terms of like venues for bars and stuff like that as a client. So just the access to this guys and just being able to just call them and ask them a question doesn't matter, like they just pour so much knowledge into you that I'm amazed. But because if I would be working for a company or just doing a CFO job or an associate job, I wouldn't have that outreach. So
Yeah, it's funny, what good sales really like teaches you. Like, you really lose all your fear of rejection. I mean, of course, every time I fly, I travel a good amount. I mean, I'm always asking for first class upgrades. My batting average is around 25%. So usually one out of every 4 flights, I'm flying first class. And I've never paid for first class, but I get it, good amount. There was a time I was in an airplane. I remember this. I'm the only guy flying first class. So the whole first class cabin is just me. I'm like, wow, I'm the only guy. Coach was full. I'm like, am I the only one who actually asked for a first class upgrade? Like, they had all these seats available,
yeah.
and I didn't pay for it. I should be back in coach with everybody else, but I was the only one who actually asked. I think that's a testament to sales. Like, sales, you just, again, like the founder president of Roku, somebody who's not in sales, like, oh gee, you do all this extra preparation. Like, do I even talk? How do I call the guy? No, I'm sure you just went in there not fearing anything.
I
There's a video you can see online of, Steve Jobs. He's being interviewed by somebody. And when he was 12, back in the old days, everybody's phone number was listed in a phone book. He calls, I think, Hewlett, right, from Hewlett Packard. Look under the H, okay, Hewlett. Made a phone call, called him at his house at the age of 12, asked him if he had any spare parts so he could start, I want to build computers. Hewlett gave him a job on the assembly line at Hewlett Packard, and then let him take whatever materials or products that he needed. And it's kind of like, wow, there's a 12-year-old boy destined for success because he just had zero fear.
yeah.
So I find it interesting that a lot of times it's just fear that prevents people from success or gives them limiting beliefs or whatever the issue may be. But I think that's the one big benefit that everybody that pursues sales would say is you completely lose your fear of rejection, because it's just a business refusal. It's not personal rejection. It's just a business refusal, and you just keep on going and marching on. So,
Yeah. I
we
mean,
both have that.
they'll say no to the product, not to you. So just being able to disattach yourself from that. Yeah, I think sales was super important for both of us. But I want to ask you this about Patrick. When you met him, he came into your office. So I think, in my opinion, you're an amazing recruiter. Because you didn't even hire me, or we have, you're like 4 levels away from me, but you had so much influence on me that it kind of kept me in the business. Like, okay, here's the opportunity. Like, it seemed clear to me and everything. So when you first interviewed Patrick met David and he came into your office, what were the things that you saw in him that you were like, okay, this guy is gonna be successful?
Yeah, I mean, from the introduction, from the minute I met, you obviously you're talking about Patrick Bet David, I fell in love with him, right? So like I just knew this guy is a winner. Like, and so like, well, how did you know type of thing? So he was young, he was in his early 20s. He probably was, I don't know, 22,
22.
23, something like that. So early 20s. And he just was going to start his career. So he wasn't doing anything yet. He was selling memberships at Bally's Fitness, I think, which is now LA Fitness. And he was looking for something. He was looking for an entrepreneurial business he could grow with. And I'm just, so obviously keywords like that, are like, okay, ding, ding, ding. I didn't have to sell him on being an entrepreneur where he's like, no, I'm just looking, what's the salary here, Jamie? He wasn't asking questions like that. He was looking at the growth of, where could this company go? And one of the things that sticks out about Patrick is, when he makes eye contact with you, like he's looking at your soul is what it feels like. Like, it's kind of like, whoa, like he is engaged, he is locked in, he is listening, he is, high with empathy, obviously, like he's feeling what you're feeling. And so we just connected. I want to say to date, that was the longest final interview I've ever had, was with Patrick Bet David. It was probably 90 minutes, right? It was 90 minutes something. I wasn't clocking it, but I mean, I blew everything else off to just meet with this guy. For 5 years, I tried recruiting Patrick. It wasn't just a one-time interview. It was for years I tried recruiting Pat. And obviously he tried recruiting me. So we had this weird recruiting relationship for years. We finally came to terms that he's unrecruitable, I'm unrecruitable, but let's just meet up and let's just keep sharing ideas. Like, hey, Pat, what are the struggles in your business? And maybe I have some perspective. And then, Pat, here's the struggles I'm having in my business. What's your perspective? So we just really hit it off, and I couldn't be happier for the guy. I mean, it's so cool to see him now in his life and, go see his, crazy home and lifestyle in Florida. I'm like, he said all that was going to happen. Like, there were times that Pat and I would drive. So he was a Valley kid. He grew up in the Valley here in LA. We drive to like a Ferrari or Lamborghini dealership at like 1 o'clock in the morning and just sit outside and look at these exotic cars. And he'd be like, yeah, I'm going to have one of those. And I'm going to have one of those. Now, a lot of people would be like, man, who is this? There's lots of people that talk, right? There's lots of people that talk the talk that have said stuff like that to me over the years. But I just had the hunch, when he was young, like, you know what, he probably will. Like, I wouldn't bet against the guy because he's backing up these dreams with relentless, crazy day-to-day action. It's not like he'd be in the club, partying and talking about this dream talk. No, it's like, no, he'd be in the grind, he'd be working, and then he and I would go have dinner and, look at Ferraris at 1 o'clock in the morning. So he'd back up his dreams with like relentless work. I mean, I want to say he worked every day for 5 years straight, like Christmas Day work, New Year's Day work. Like, for 5 years, he didn't take one day off. And a guy like me, as we're meeting up, I'm like, hey, I'm a little concerned. Like, I normally don't do that. Usually I want to push people to work harder. Pat and a handful of other guys were people that I'm like, can you handle this type of pace? And then again, look what he's done, and look what a great influence he is on so many other people. So yeah, it's a special relationship with Pat. I love that guy to pieces. I think he's just a winner on so many fronts.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I saw him was a video that he sent to our org. And I was like, oh, this guy. And then I went to YouTube, and obviously Value Tateman. I mean, Value Tateman has grown so much in the last 4 years. That's crazy. I mean, I don't think there's one single famous person that he has an interview that has, a great mentality. But what do you think makes you, Jamie, so good at developing people?
Well, I don't, I mean, I'm humbled to hear you say that, because I'm like, what makes me think I'm so great at developing people? I don't think I'm so great at developing people. I think I'm a work in progress myself. Okay, so now I'm always interested in leveling up. I want to improve. So therefore, I think that qualifies me to help others. Like, because I'm not content with where I'm at. I want to become a better version of myself now in my 50s. I'm hoping my 50s I can add more value than I did in my 40s, kind of thing. Um, so again, I'm a work in progress. I know it, but I'm chipping away at it. I'm trying to become Jamie 2.0. But I think the key thing that I say to it, I've been saying this for years. Um, you either care about people or you don't. Like, if a dog is smart enough to smell fear, like we all know that. Like, if you're afraid, a dog can tell you're afraid. So if a dog has that level of intelligence, then I think humans, every human, can smell, BS or not. They can smell sincerity or not. They can smell, your genuineness or not. So, I think for me, like, I remember my grandparents, right? Like, it was a kindergarten questionnaire thing. And hey, if you could have anything you want, what would you want? Right. So, well, of course, like, my grandfather was blind, and
Mhm.
my grandmother had a hard time walking. She needed hip replacement. So immediately, if I could have anything I want, I'd want my granddad to see, and I'd want my grandma to walk. And so that's what I wrote down, or something. I might have been first grade when I knew I had to write it. So it was either kindergarten or first grade or something. I just remember my grandparents, I go to visit them, and so word got back to them that that's what I wrote. And I was confused why that was such a big deal, because I thought that's what everybody would have wrote something like that. And apparently the other answers from the other kids, I didn't know. Well, I want a skateboard. I want a new console, play video games, something like that, right? Like, that's how the young mind worked. But my young mind at a young age was, hey, I care. Like, so I learned that at a young age about me. What, who am I? I just genuinely care about the well-being of other people. So I think I landed in the right space in the business that I'm in, because I can be good at what I'm doing because I sincerely care. Like, I want people, like, I want to see you win, Darwin. Whether you and I work together, whether we don't work together, I think that's one of the things you like about me is, that I actually genuinely give a crap about you and your success. I want to see you as a happily married man. I want to see you as a great husband. I want to see you as a great father one day. Like, I just genuinely care. I don't know why I'm that way. That's just how God wired me. Like, he's like, okay, you're gonna care. So I think that's probably my secret sauce, if you will, is
Yeah.
there's just a level of genuineness that I really do. It makes me, it just motivates me to see other people, win and succeed. I just love that. So anyway,
That's why you resonate so good with John Maxwell.
yeah, I mean, I sense that in him too. Like, the guy is just, he really does care. I've met a bunch of those guys, like Ken Blanchard, and like, there is something about these guys where it really does matter to them
Mhm.
how you're doing. And that's just so refreshing, from people at that level. Like, I'm sure when you met Grant Cardone, you probably felt similar from a guy like Grant, where he, like, genuinely took an interest in you.
Yep.
There's something special about that.
Yeah. I mean, just by the questions. I mean, when you said about Patrick about the ice, it's the same thing I felt about Grant.
Mm,
Like, locked in. I'm like, this is exactly how he talks to everybody.
mm,
And this is
yeah,
exactly why everybody's drawn to him. Like, that's
yeah,
one of the things that sticks out. You had lunch with John Maxwell, you said, right? A couple of times.
yeah. A few
What
times I've had lunch
what
with
kind
him.
of questions what were going on the table? Were you asking the questions? Was he asking the questions? How was
Well, I
that?
mean, I walked in. I mean, I walked in prepared, no question, because I mean, I may not ever get this opportunity again. So yes, I led the Q&A. No doubt about it. The thing that sticks out the most with John, and this is way back in the early days when I was really seeking how to be effective, like with your time. How do you manage your time when you got so much going on? Like, how can you be successful in marriage and business and, being a dad and all this stuff? And so I remember just asking him how he plans, prepares, and manages his time. And it was fascinating, like something unique that I'd never heard from anybody else on how he did that process. And I was just just aggressively writing it down, just in awe of his mastery of his calendar. Because the guy has done so much, he's authored almost 100 books. He travels a ton around the world. He started a nonprofit called Equip, where they're training leaders all around the world. And he had thousands of people he had trained. So I'm just like, man, I want my life to look like yours. Like, just to a small degree, I'll be successful if I can, be a little mini version of you. But how he did that was just fascinating. So those were a lot of the questions that I had for him, was just, how are you effective, and how are you making the time for the important things? And he took me to school.
Huh. How did you got in contact with him?
There was a guy from Sidcor visiting my office who saw all these John Maxwell books on my shelf. He says, "Oh, you like John Maxwell?" I said, "Yeah, listen, he's my favorite author. I love John." He says, "Oh, well, my dad and he were really good friends back in this church." And I'm like, "Oh, do you have John's contact info? Like, could you get in contact with him?" He goes, "Yeah, I do." I'm like, "Dude," I'm like, "I'll do anything. Like, what do you want from me?"
Wow.
So anyway, so long story short, this guy, his name is Jason. He brokered, he says, "Hey, Jamie, John's coming to LA. There's this event. Let's go to this event and I'll set up lunch." So then, so I'm like, "Sure." I buy tickets, went to the event. We had our lunch. John was like, it was so interesting. He was on, this was something like his 14th event in something like 10 days of travel. So when I saw him at lunch, he looked so exhausted and beat up. Like he slumped in his chair. He's eating a muffin and like crumbs are kind of trickling down his face. Like he was just completely exhausted. I was thinking after that, I'm like, gee, I wonder if John's going to be able to make it the second half, like for the afternoon portion. We all get back in our chairs and the event starts up again. And John's like, "Oh, how's everybody's lunch?" And he's like right back on point. I'm like, this guy is a professional. No doubt. This guy is a pro. He just turned it on and made it happen and gave everybody the value that they paid for, But yeah, I don't want to say I became friends with John, but we did meet up a couple more times after that. And
I mean, he did say in the conference that I went to that if you have a lunch with a coach and you get another lunch, that means that you're a perfect student. That's how he started with John Wooden. He was just trying to get another lunch, and he got another one, and he got another one, and another one.
I did ask him if he would if he could be my coach. Like I did ask him in one of those, and he laughed at me. So
Really?
Again, like I said earlier, salespeople, no fear of rejection. Just go for it. I got rejected hardcore, like with a laugh in the face, like no, like just a straight up no. Didn't even think about it. He's like, "I've got limited people I can coach," and so he didn't even ask me any questions about what I'm doing or any. He just like flat out no. So
hey, you gotta ask.
Yeah, you gotta ask.
Jamie, thank you so much for your time. Learn a ton. I always learn from you. And I'll keep you posted on everything that's going on in the business. Good things are coming, and let's stay in contact.
Well, I love your postings. I mean, you're even posting, field work that you're doing, and so your story. I mean, obviously, you're writing a storybook, and I guess what's great in today's world of social media is, fans like me can watch every step of this journey